direct that, and I go into slide out of my head. So if you're creating that time, 100, if you get it in by 5 o'clock, 75 within 30 days. And I'm not seeing, so I used to do 3 things you learn, 2 things you want to do more about, and 1 question that you think would be interesting in the last answer. They love that assignment, but I was spending all the time responding to those questions. I was writing 4 or 5 questions, which is fine, but it just kind of seems to be.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Is this on?
I can hear you, Cindy.
Hello? Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning in the Meeting House and on Zoom. My name is Cynthia Bushy, part of the transition team along with Audrey. And I'm going to start with a couple of announcements, and then if anyone else has announcements, I'll invite you to come and share them at the microphone down here. First, we would like to remind you to mark your calendar for the rest of these Finding Our Way Together services. We're back in action after our last one, which was early December, and then we had the holidays and a weather event, and so we're so excited to be back here with all of you. Our next service will be March 10th. So it's coming up in just a couple of weeks after this one. The next governing board meeting will be on March 3rd at 4:30 p.m. in the Burns Room. And confirmed for the 3rd? All right, and all are welcome to attend. Dick, I know you have an announcement, so come on up, either place, all the way up or to the microphone down there, if you would. Thank you. Sure.
Good morning. I'm Dick, the rental coordinator at church, and it's been a very busy spring. So there's kind of lots to report, and I thought it would be a good idea to report some of this. First, you saw in the perspective this past week that we've got 2 great concerts coming up, so almost back to back. The Prince Edward Island group, and then a cellist. I don't know quite as much about that person as the Prince Edward group, but that's coming up. But in addition, there's been an awful lot going on, and some of you may remember Carolyn Barthel. Am I saying her name right? Who was a member of the church and a director of religious education. Well, she would like to bring the state meeting of 350.org, that's McKibben's organization, to the church, and it looks like that would happen on the 3rd, on the 16th of March. Then we've got contra dancing. They've scheduled another contra dance. Celia and I did dance yesterday, if you saw me hobbling up here. And it was a wonderful time and a very nice group of people. I think the church would just enjoy the feeling there. And there's another dance coming up on the 23rd of March, and then they've scheduled one for the 27th of April as well. The Northeast Judges, wait a minute, this is the Northeast chapter of the American Orchid Society Judges would like to use our parish hall for a meeting once a month, and that's, they would start in June. Some of these things have yet to be approved by the board, but that will be nice, a nice event. And if we have any people who are orchid fanciers in the congregation, I would appreciate them joining me as a welcoming committee, because they're going to come to look at the site next Saturday. at 3 o'clock. Donna Morris has arranged for recycling once again. That's coming up on the 13th of April. And then Applefest has asked if the junior women's group of Northborough could resurrect the Applefest Cafe in the parish hall, and they would be selling pies and then also slices and turnovers and things like that. And they're hoping that that would be a nice complement to the Solar Jazz Festival, which I hope we're going to have once again. And then finally, Renee and I are trying to figure out when we can bring a line dancing teacher to the parish for beginners line dancing. So there's an awful lot going on, and I would just suggest you really, when the prospectus comes, get your calendars out and put some very exciting stuff coming in. They will all be posted there. You may keep it.
Thank you, Dick. Wow. Thank you for all your hard work, too. Okay, Lisa.
This is just a quick notice that many of you know Carolyn Howe, who used to be a regular member of our congregation, is a very beloved poet in the area. And we're planning a special Sunday service for her on April 7th with a reception to follow at Parish Hall. So write it on your calendars.
Thank you, Lisa. So many great community events. This is wonderful. Welcome to First Parish Unitarian Universalist, Northborough. We Unitarian Universalists are a non-creedal, religiously liberal faith tradition. We hold in our worship and in our faith formation that each individual and each community will explore a wide and varied set of beliefs and ideas that encourage us to live life as a spiritual journey, deepening our connections to compassion, justice, and an understanding of eternal truths. Our interim minister is Reverend Abigail Stockman. If you have any questions about Unitarian Universalism or First Parish Church, please don't hesitate to reach out to her. We are a community in multiple locations, so let's take a moment to greet one another by waving to those online and those around you until the chime is rung. Hi, everyone. We ring our chime to call us into this sacred time of worship, followed by a musical prelude by Jeff and Kathleen.
Thank you. Good morning. We come together as a faith community, and we come to take time set aside to replenish and nurture ourselves. But also when we come together as a faith community, we strengthen and nurture each other. And that's very important. So it's for both things, for ourselves and for each other. It's that commitment to each other. And with that in mind, the opening words, which is number 441, I believe you have in the order of service. Today we'll recite these words as a responsive reading while Chris lights the chalice. These words were written by Jacob Trapp, a 20th century UU minister. I'll start first, and then you follow with the italicized words. To worship is to stand in awe under a heaven of stars, before a flower, a leaf in the sunlight, or a grain of sand. Is to be silent, receptive, to worship is to work with dedication and with skill. It is to pause from the work and listen to the strain of music. Worship is a loneliness seeking communion. It is a thirsty land crying out for rain. Worship is the mystery within us, reaching out to the mystery beyond. Please rise as you are able and join us in singing our opening hymn, We Are Gathered, number 360 in the Silver Hymnal. Donna Morris now will come and read She Had Enough, a story from our tapestry of faith.
She'd had enough. After After many years in a congregation, she had had enough. Knowing the people as well as she did, she knew that what they said on Sunday and what they did on Monday did not always equate. More often than not, Sunday was the one day of the week on which you could tell that people believed what they said they did. The rest of the week, she could see little difference between the other members of the congregation and the hypocrites they denounced. And the words of the hymns no longer spoke to her. They talked of things she had long ago given up believing, or were words that had no real meaning in her life. And the sermons weren't much better, entertaining perhaps, sometimes giving her something to think about, but a good book or an independent film could do the same. And besides, she'd had to go when she was a kid and when her kids were young, but now? No, she'd had enough. And so she began walking in the woods on Sunday mornings, alone with her thoughts and the rustling leaves. She felt a freedom she had not known in a long time. She got more from the sunshine than from a year of sermons, and the birds surpassed any anthem she'd heard. This was good. This was right. The woods were her sanctuary. The wind was all the preaching she needed. This continued for some time until one day she realized that the birds sang together and the trees swayed as one, but she was by herself. No squirrel cared that she had a new grandchild. No rhododendron could help her wrestle with her mother's Alzheimer's. The flora and fauna did not face what she faced as a human, and she could not offer their understanding. Nor could she really offer herself to any of them. So she returned to her congregation, and she saw herself in the people who were trying to live what they believed. And she heard her life in the hymns and the readings and the sermons, or at least some of the time.
It is now time for us to collect our offering to support the work of our church. The half plate for the month of February goes to Habitat for Humanity. And we're going to have some beautiful music by Jeff and Kathleen again. Please give generously as you are able.
pausing. I parked it. Yeah. So he prescribed it. Yeah, really glad he did.
Camzyos is used to treat adults with symptoms.
Competition. You were all asked to reflect on, in your journals, on the questions that we had that are in the order of service. And I'll just read through them, and I believe they'll be up on the screen as well. We often use the terms congregation, community, and commitment, and assume we are all defining them the same way. But are we? How would you define congregation, community, and commitment? And the second question is, you have spent the past two Finding Our Way Together services deepening your awareness of your own spirituality. How do you live out that spirituality through your understanding of congregation, community, and commitment? So we'd like to take about 5 minutes now for you to review your answers or expand on them. If this is your first time seeing these questions, we do have copies available, and you may take the time now to reflect on them briefly. So it'll be about 5 minutes. We've now come to the time in our service where we will break into small groups to share our answers and the general questions you've asked to be reflect on. But of course, there has to be a few instructions first. In previous services, we've asked you to share what was most impactful for you because we don't usually have the time to go through all of the questions. Today's sharing, though, it's going to look a bit different. We want to understand how each of you has defined each of the terms congregation, community, and commitment. So we're asking facilitators to use the talking stick to allow each person a turn to define each term, one at a time. This means you will have 3 initial rounds with the talking stick. Facilitators will be keeping notes today as how you have defined each of these terms. After the first 3 rounds, as time allows, there'll be a 4th round where individuals can lift up similarities and differences they have noted so that they can be added to the facilitator's notes. When the sharing time is over, we will ring the bowl to signal that it is time to return to the whole group. And when we come back together into a large group, the facilitators will be asked to share their notes. So before we break into groups, if we would all take out it's in your order of service and read the agreement together. By entering this sacred time of sharing together, we agree to honor each other's best needs and be present to each other. In order to create a safe environment for sharing, we need space and time to explore our own emotions and ideas and to reflect on the sharing of others, with an understanding that the space between words also holds meaning. Intentionally quiet time can help us center ourselves in the present moment. Active listening to hear one another fully and without judgment, and to accept what is said without interruption, comment, debate, or unsolicited response, both when we agree with what was shared and when we do not agree. Courage to risk sharing what may feel awkward or hard, and trust in ourselves and each other that what we are inspired or moved to say is worth saying and will make a difference when it is shared. Understanding that different truths can coexist and even our own deepest truths can change over time. Ideas we once thought to be true can evolve and grow. Acceptance of the diverse ways individuals show up in our shared space. We will both support each other and celebrate who we become. Empathy, caring, and kindness, knowing that others' empathy can give us confidence to speak our truth. Bearing witness to one another is powerful. Commitment. Once we cross the threshold of the shared time and space. So now we will be breaking into small groups. Yeah.
The facilitators have each sort of designated a spot, so you can go to your spots, facilitators. And then those on Zoom, before you head off, know that you'll have 20 minutes. So once you start, Linda Clark is going to be the facilitator today, and we will see you back here in 20 minutes, maybe like 21 minutes, because it'll take us a minute to get situated here. We'll see you soon. Thank you, tech people in the heavens up there who will help us not be able to hear the Zoom folks. Do you want to count people off here? We'll have them count, yeah.
Okay, Zach starts 1. Corinne?
And back to 1. Tracy? 4. Dave? 5. Chris is 1. Yeah? Gordon? Bob? 3. Celia? 5. So I'm going to turn it over to Linda.
So I wrote a lot, so trying to condense that into what to share is the challenge. So for congregation, basically there's members and friends, staff. It's a group of people for any congregation, a group of people caring, coming together as a spiritual group. So that there are other larger groups with things in common, but what distinguishes a congregation is the spirituality. Community would include, if we started with our church, you could add to that community the social and larger groups in the neighborhood where we live. The basic tenets of community are people who respect each other and respect differences. Being kind to each other is an expectation that we don't always meet. In community, there are groups that share what their interests are, perhaps music, any other thing. And together with those interests, they build traditions that are hopefully enjoyable for everyone. So other communities that we are part of that are maybe extensions of us and that we bring with us are our hometowns, our families and relations, inline communities, online, similar interests, people who can support each other, not necessarily in person. But in any community, there are people who are coming together. And what two things that might be noted are that they have things in common and they have a feeling of belonging. In a church community, people who contribute through events are also in the community. That there are many in our community that we no longer actually see or participate, but consider themselves members of our community. For commitment, this gets a little more detailed, so I'm just going to read a couple of definitions. I'm going to start with the hardest one first. Personal accord, to uphold an ideal and the fortitude to take action. Participate, pledge, doing it even if you don't want to. But this is the most difficult part, giving time, attention, and effort, and discerning whatever is needed. Doing due diligence, a commitment to, in our congregational community, a commitment to the 7 principles, and however they evolve. Sometimes a willingness to contribute is asked of us, even if we don't know we have something to contribute. So just stepping up when people ask you. So at the heart of a commitment is being true to whatever it is, ourselves and others. So a commitment to truth. That's our little online group, but had a very good session.
Thank you so much, Linda, and the online Zoom group. I would ask the facilitators to come on up. You can come one at a time, and when one is done, another one can come up, so you don't have to stand through the whole thing. Anne is starting. You're up. Our robing room group.
We tended to define congregation kind of as a group as more just the physical people that are here, members of the church, a group of people. And there was a lot of religious overtone associated with congregation. As opposed to community they felt was all the interactions that happen between the people, like in a congregation. They have common purposes. It's a network of people that serve as the formulation of the culture. Physical interactions are important, social interactions. They have the same shared values and goals and ideals. Commitment, we said it's a promise, a pledge to support the community, support the church in many ways, a willingness to give in various ways, and a conviction to action, to actually do something. Those were.
Could we keep that? Thank you. Karen's up next. Karen, and then Lisa, you're on deck.
For congregation, I think the key word was sort of group of people that are like-minded and gathering for a purpose. And it was brought up that this is sort of the highest level of gathering that brings the other community and commitment forth. We all agree that there's a great interdependency between the three things: congregation, commitment, and community. And the community part is focused on the working and how people are together. In a church, it's sort of sharing to keep members nourished and cared for, helping people out, developing feelings for one another. And there was not discussion, but bringing out of examples of this kind of behavior. And then commitment, the foundation of that is sticking to an obligation. Sort of the follow-through part was the key similarity. Making space and time for the community and the congregation, and promising to participate and following through.
Karen, can I keep? Audrey and I have homework to do with these documents, so once the facilitators share, I will be collecting them.
So commitment, I'll just put mine, my definition of congregation, rather, we start with this. A group of people drawn together by an urge to commit to examining our deeper selves, to expand our understanding of how we can experience our lives as spirits in the material world. Definitions from our group were the people in this church, very simply. There was an emphasis on the importance of expanding our impact beyond those within these walls to the larger community outside church. Participating. There was an emphasis on the spiritual and religious aspects of this gathering. And what was interesting about the responses is some of them were very personal, about personal impulses, and then others were more about generically the impact that we make on the broader world around us. And community. A larger group of people who may not regularly gather to examine our values, but share space and proximity and opportunity to share and learn. One of the definitions was that within this church there are multiple communities. We referenced the rather broad group of smaller associations. We have the poetry group, the men's group, building and grounds, and how those form their own small communities of interest within our church. It was emphasized that community has more of a social aspect to it as opposed to the spiritual nature. It's based on more mutual values and our need to support each other and work through differences that we have. Also, this was mentioned by several people, that there's a fondness that we have for people in our community. There's an affection and a sense of loyalty that we have personally to people in that group. So community was people involved in the unifying identity and caring, fondness, and connectedness. And commitment. An urge or passion to dedicate time and resources to a project or institution that compels our interests and speaks to our values. It was pointed out that commitment can be either time or money, hopefully both, and that the church needs both from us. It's a responsibility to donate as what we can to sustain the church so that everything else that's happening within that fulfills us is able to continue. Someone said that commitment also relates to the people who aren't always seen. We go over to coffee hour and might not be thinking about how much work it took to put together get the coffee ready and get the food ready for us. And when we have open mic night, you know, all of the work that happens before we walk through the door. This is part of the deeper commitment to the community that we all benefit from. And then giving of time, our presence at the services, listening to the sermons and listening to each other, and also enjoying things like open mic night and the penultimate potluck dinners. A commitment to our church community, a belief in common values. And someone mentioned that this is the most personal category of all because it relates to what ignites our passion, what ignites our interest, and what keeps us engaged.
Lisa, I'm gonna keep the. I have to give it away. You do. I can give it back next time. Alan, thank you.
Good morning, all. So I had a really great conversation with Kathleen and Corinne. Thank you for being part of that over in the corner this morning. Good luck reading my notes.
I'll call you.
I'm going to have to spend some time writing a few things down, but that's fine. Okay, so we actually started with a little bit more of with the definition of community, and we talked about communities as having both an internal focus as well as an external, focus. And generally, if for internally, you're generally sharing, values. Externally, there's something you as a community are sharing with, the folks around you. Also, a definition is a place where people share concerns, experiences, and share support. So those were, so some shared values, around community. Congregation, we talked about congregations as being a subset of communities that, in some cases, shows up to do the work, whether that's showing up all the time or showing up only occasionally. A place where people gather in spirit, connected by shared values around spiritual questions. I use the term, some of the philosophical questions about, where do we come from? What happens after our bodies die? How do we treat each other? How can we expect other people to treat us? Those are all aspects of a congregation around some set of shared beliefs, religious beliefs, spiritual beliefs. And commitment, I think we had pretty, some common definitions. Certainly you're contributing, your talents. I generally talk about it as head, heart, hands, and resources, because any community, any congregation needs support from its members at whatever level. Commitment was also doing what you said, being reliable, having integrity, which is certainly important. We had a fair conversation about the different levels of commitment and whether it's okay to have a small level of commitment. I'll use my wife, Sherry, as an example. I mean, she came to church for the first time in several years, about 2 weeks ago when we had that wonderful singer here. She very much considers herself to be part of this congregation and community, but she's not going to physically be here very often. Others are members of the Board of Governors, are the folks that do the coffee every week, all those things that have perhaps a larger commitment of time and resources. But all are welcome within that very broad range. And finally, let's see. Okay, I think that generally covers it. So I'll try to write a few more notes before I hand them to you.
Okay, I accept. And last but not least, Cindy, the foyer group? The foyer group?
Yes, the foyer group, with my back against the radiator. That's why I picked that room. All right, so we were a group including me of 3. And starting out with congregation, we noted that it's also a community. It's a gathering of people with a common thoughts and wants to be out into the world or to be committed to being socially active, and then religious is what kind of grounds that. Community was a gathering of commonalities. It could be religious, it could be it could be within the community of our own town. And I'm trying to read my notes. Such as First Parish, or being involved in community gatherings of people that work for the town, such as the recycling committee or the historical committee within community. And commitment, I'm just trying to be brief because a lot of this has been covered already. Commitment is a promise to be a helpful part of the community and giving back and contributing, no matter what level you can commit to being a contributor as best or as well as you can. We also talked about how all of these C words, which they're community, commitment, and congregation, the lines are often blurred between them, and how, for some people they are, others not, but it's also, it's a continuum of life, congregation, community, commitment, and that's a continuum. So all my words are COMM.
Thank you, everybody, for sharing. Thank you for the heavy lifting, facilitators. We asked a lot of you today. Really appreciated. Audrey and I, as I said, are going to take a look through those. We have the benefit of the recording to hear those words again, and we'll bring back some ideas, some thoughts on that to launch our next service together on March 10th. And I loved hearing somebody talk about sense of belonging. You got your March journal questions in your groups afterwards. And those are really focusing around a sense of belonging. So take a look at those. I'm going to read a brief excerpt from the UUA Tapestry of Faith Spirit in Practice curriculum. If you asked 20 people in a Unitarian Universalist congregation why they come to Sunday services, you'd probably get 20 answers or more. Some people are looking for intellectual stimulation, wanting to learn something new or to see things in a new way. Some are there for a feeling of belonging to a community. Some want a liberal religious education for their children, and some seek solace during hard times. Some want encouragement to continue working to bring more justice to the world. Some want to see their friends, some want to hear great music, some want a little quiet in their week, and some aren't sure why they're there. You and I may come on any given Sunday for our own personal reasons, but we, the whole community, have gathered in celebration of life. Whatever we choose to call it, communal worship is, in and of itself, a valuable part of one's spiritual growth. Time spent alone in nature can be transformative. Time spent meditating or in prayer is valuable. Time spent in service to and with others is important. But none of these can replace the act of coming together in community with others on a regular basis. Being among other people, truly being with them, can be a profound experience. The Trappist monk, Thomas Merton, described a powerful moment of spiritual insight he experienced while standing on a corner in New York City. With hundreds of people hurrying past him, he suddenly realized that he was connected to each and every one of them. All were members of the same human family living on the same fragile planet. Communal worship gives us the opportunity for the same realization week in and week out. We can see that our own personal lives exist within a larger context. This cannot be done in isolation. When we come together in communal worship, we remind ourselves that our own lives exist in a wider context, and we join with others in a celebration of life. Our own lives, the life of the community, the lives of other species on our planet, life itself. We come together to tap into the wisdom of those who have gone before and to leave our own markers for those who come after. This, my friends, is a deeply spiritual practice.
Now's the time to enter into a spiritual practice that we all honor very much. As a congregation, we are a community of faith, and we're committed to each other and lifting each other up in prayer and good intentions. This ritual of connection is observed in most faith communities. It is a time to witness to one another's sharing as acts of worship to those special moments of joy or sorrow in our living. We do this in faith that a joy shared increases joy in the world, and a sorrow or burden shared lightens the load, knowing that others are holding it in love during the challenging moments that we experience. If you have a joy or sorrow you would like to share, please come up and drop a stone, mention your name, and either what the stone is for or just in silence. And as you finish, if you would just check if there's someone on Zoom perhaps then would like to. Please stand if you're able, number 1008, and remain standing after we finish singing. Hearts are in a holy place. We are blessed with love and amazing grace. Heart is in a holy place. When I find wisdom and trust, very free. And we find the wisdom in this place. When our heart is in a holy place. When our heart's in a holy place, the heart is in a holy place, blessed with love and amazing grace. The heart is in a holy place. When we tell our story from deep inside, we sing loving lines, and we recognize each other's worth. When our heart is in a holy place, our heart is in a holy place, our heart is in a holy place. Love and amazing grace, our heart is in a holy place. Share the silence of a sacred space, guard our hearts to within, and we feed our power on each other's faith. Then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, our heart is in a holy place. Blessed with love and amazing grace, our heart is in a holy place. Heart is in a holy place. Together, let us bless each other going forth for the week as we recite number 684. The blessing of truth be upon us. The power of love direct us and sustain us. And may the peace of this community preserve our going out and our coming in from this time forth until we meet again.